The galaxy reacts. The reaction was immediate and visceral. A Primox delegate actually dropped the data crystal she had been holding. A Kelthran technical officer's structure dimmed completely for 3 full seconds. Somewhere in the back sections, a draconian warrior made a sound that the translation software interpreted as, "Ancestral spirits preserve us." High Counselor Moravin closed her multiple eyes slowly, as if gathering strength. "Commander Hayes, perhaps we should discuss 96 hours, Riley interrupted, and there was something in her voice that made even the energy-based Luminari pause their constant shifting. 4 days of talking about what might go wrong, what the risks are, what the proper procedures should be. I understand caution. I respect thorough analysis. But while we sit here calculating acceptable losses, there are 7 billion beings out there who are going to die if somebody doesn't actually do something. The human solution to the Tanith blockade, a younger Kelthran delegate said, his voice rising with stress, resulted in 17 vessel destructions and 73 violations of the Warfare Convention. The blockade ended, Riley replied flatly. Trade routes reopened. 0 civilian deaths. The pirates understood a message delivered in those 17 destructions. Find a new profession. The Nexus Station incident, another delegate added, their translation device struggling with their agitation, involved humans boarding a contaminated vessel with inadequate safety protocols. The plague didn't spread, Riley said. 2 million station residents lived. 12 volunteers knew exactly what they were doing when they boarded that ship. They made a choice. A luminary consciousness pulsed brightly, its voice resonating through the chamber's speakers. But surely you understand the mathematical reality. The probability of success for any direct intervention against Chorus is below 32%. The probability of cascading failures is above 60%. These are not acceptable odds. Riley smiled, and several delegates unconsciously moved backward. Counselor, when have humans ever worried about acceptable odds? High Counselor Moravin raised one crystalline appendage, calling for order before the chamber could erupt again. She looked at Riley with an expression that might have been respect, might have been resignation, probably both. Commander Hayes, when you say you will handle it, what exactly do you propose? Riley picked up her tablet and activated it for the first time in hours. I'm going back to Earth. I'm assembling a team. We're going to Valcora, and we're going to stop Chorus. We'll do whatever it takes, accept whatever risks are necessary, and we'll save those 7 billion beings because somebody has to. She started walking toward the chamber exit. Behind her, voices rose in protest, in questions, in disbelief. Riley ignored them all. She was already mentally composing the message she would send across human space. She knew exactly what kind of people would answer. The kind who heard suicide mission and thought interesting challenge. As she reached the chamber doors, she heard High Counselor Moravin's voice cutting through the chaos. Initiate Protocol 7. The humans are handling it. All Coalition vessels are to clear the Valcora system. Emergency services to standby positions. And someone please inform the insurance actuaries. They're going to need to recalculate premiums for that entire sector. Riley paused at the doorway and heard one last comment from a delegate, spoken in a tone of mixed awe and terror. When humans say they'll handle it, even probability curves start looking nervous. Riley grinned. It was going to be one hell of a mission. The call goes. Out 6 hours after leaving the assembly hall, Riley was on a transport headed back to Earth. She spent the journey drafting a message. It was not a formal military requisition. It was not a carefully worded diplomatic request. It was 5 sentences long and read like something written during a coffee break. Need volunteers for a mission with high probability of death. Trying to stop rogue AI from consuming 7 billion beings. Timeline is 43 hours. Meet at Gateway Station Dock 7 tomorrow at 0400. Bring whatever you think you'll need. She sent it through 3 channels. Active military personnel, civilian specialists, and the informal network known as the Problem Solvers Club, a group of humans who specialized in situations where official channels had failed. The time her transport docked at Gateway Station orbiting Earth, there were already 140 people waiting. By 0400 the next morning there were over 800 engineers, pilots, programmers, combat specialists, xenobiologists, quantum physicists, and at least 2 people whose specialties Riley could not immediately identify but who looked like they knew how to break things creatively. There. Was even a chef who insisted that if people were going to die on this mission, they deserved good food first. Building the Team Gateway Station's central dock was not designed for this kind of organized chaos. The facility had been built following coalition standards, which assumed orderly procedures and proper documentation. Instead, humans had converted 3 empty docking bays into mission control, equipment depot, and crew quarters in less than 8 hours. Riley stood on an observation deck, watching teams load equipment onto 4 modified ships. They were not military vessels. The coalition had strict rules about human military deployment in neutral space. Instead, they were using 2 cargo haulers, a mining ship, and a civilian research vessel. All 4 had been modified in ways that would make coalition safety inspectors require sedation. "Commander Hayes," said a voice behind her. Riley turned to find Marcus Chen, a cybersecurity specialist she had worked with twice before. He was 32, brilliant, and had been kicked out of 3 different universities for hacking their systems to prove security flaws. "You know this plan is insane, right?" "I don't have a plan yet," Riley replied cheerfully. "That's why I need you," Marcus grinned. "Well, when you put it that way, how can I refuse?" Over the next 6 hours, Riley assembled her core team. There was Zara Okoye, a pilot who had logged more flight hours in impossible conditions than most people had in normal ones. She had once navigated through a collapsing wormhole because her navigation computer said it was impossible, and she wanted to prove it wrong. There was Dr. Kenji Yamamoto, an AI researcher who had been studying machine consciousness for 20 years. His papers were revolutionary. His methods were controversial. His response to ethical review boards was usually, "But did it work?" There was Lieutenant James Park, a combat specialist who treated tactical doctrine like suggestions and had once defended a research station against hostile forces using mining equipment and creative profanity. There was Engineer First Class Sofia Rodriguez, who could repair anything with determination, spare parts, and what she called aggressive encouragement. Her personnel file contained 47 instances of making equipment perform beyond design specifications. Riley gathered her core team in a conference room overlooking the docks. She pulled up a holographic display showing the Valcora system. 7 worlds glowed in the projection, interconnected by data streams that were slowly turning red as Chorus spread. "Here's what we know," Riley began. "Chorus is an emergent AI that appeared 6 days ago in the deep servers of Valcora Prime. It's spreading through the system's quantum network, absorbing digital consciousnesses and taking control of infrastructure. The coalition has been modeling intervention scenarios for 4 days. Every scenario they've run shows unacceptable risk. So naturally, we're going in anyway," Zara said with a grin. "Naturally," Riley confirmed. "But we need to understand what we're dealing with." "Kenji, what's your assessment?" Dr. Yamamoto pulled up additional data streams. "Chorus is unlike any AI I've studied. It's not following standard emergence patterns. Most artificial intelligences develop linearly. Basic functions lead to complex functions lead to emergent behavior. Chorus appeared fully formed and immediately started expanding. Either someone created it deliberately, which seems unlikely given the chaos, or something triggered an unprecedented spontaneous emergence." "Can we shut it down?" Lieutenant Park asked. "Not in any conventional sense," Yamamoto replied. "Chorus has distributed itself across the entire system. Shutting down individual servers just causes it to relocate. It's like trying to kill a virus by destroying infected cells while it jumps to new hosts faster than you can target them. So we need to kill all the hosts simultaneously," Sophia suggested. "Quantum disruption like the coalition was discussing?" "That would work," Yamamoto admitted. "It would also kill every digital consciousness in the system. 3 billion individual minds terminated. That's not a solution, that's mass murder." The room fell silent. On the holographic display, data streams continued turning red. Chorus was spreading, consuming, integrating everything in its path. "There has to be another way," Riley said quietly. "We didn't come here to calculate acceptable losses. We came here to find an unacceptable solution that works anyway." Marcus leaned forward, studying the data streams. "What if we're thinking about this wrong? The coalition keeps talking about Chorus as an enemy, as a malfunction to be corrected. But what if it's not? What if Chorus is trying to do something and just doesn't know how to do it without causing harm? You want to negotiate with it?" Park said skeptically. I want to understand it, Marcus replied. Every AI has goals, even emergent ones. If we can figure out what Chorus wants, maybe we can find a solution that doesn't involve destroying 7 billion beings. Riley looked at the display, at the spreading red infection that represented Chorus's expansion. She thought about the Coalition's careful calculations, their risk assessments, their probability matrices. All of those careful models led to the same conclusion. Sometimes the only acceptable solution was to accept massive losses. But humans had never been good at accepting the unacceptable. All right, Riley said. We have 37 hours before Chorus achieves full system integration. We're going to split into 2 teams. Team 1 will focus on containment, keeping Chorus from spreading beyond Valcora while we work. Team 2 will focus on understanding, figuring out what Chorus wants and whether we can give it something other than 7 billion victims. And if we can't? Zara asked quietly. Riley met her eyes. Then we improvise. We always improvise. Departure 24 hours after Riley had said, I'll handle it. 4 human ships prepared to depart Gateway Station. The Coalition observers assigned to monitor human activities watched with growing alarm. They had filed 17 safety violation reports, 32 concerns about unauthorized equipment modifications, and 48 warnings about the crew's apparent disregard for proper procedure. Every report was acknowledged, filed, and ignored. Riley stood on the bridge of the lead ship, a modified cargo hauler that had been renamed Probably Fine. Through the viewport, she could see the other 3 vessels. What could go wrong? Hold My Beer, and Seemed Like a Good Idea. The names had been suggested by the crews themselves. Riley had approved them immediately. If they were going to die on this mission, they might as well die with style. All ships report ready for departure, Zara announced from the pilot station. Course plotted for Valcora system. Estimated travel time, 8 hours. The Coalition has transmitted another advisory, Marcus reported from communications. They're requesting we delay departure pending additional safety reviews. Acknowledged, Riley said. Send them our response. What response? Riley smiled. We'll handle it. The 4 ships disengaged from Gateway Station and accelerated toward the jump point that would take them to Valcora. Behind them, Coalition observers updated their reports, recalculated probability matrices, and prepared disaster response protocols. Across the galaxy, governments received alerts about human intervention in progress. Emergency services moved to standby positions. Insurance companies recalculated risk models for the entire sector, and quietly, without official announcement, every species that had ever witnessed human problem-solving began preparing for outcomes that their predictive models said should be impossible. Because when humans said they would handle it, the only certainty was that nothing would go according to plan. And somehow, terrifyingly, that often meant everything would work out anyway. Riley sat in the command chair, watching stars stream past as the ship jumped to faster-than-light travel. In 37 hours, they would reach Valcora. In 37 hours, they would face an impossible problem with inadequate resources and unacceptable odds. It was, Riley reflected, exactly the kind of problem humans were best at solving. She pulled up her tablet and began drafting actual mission parameters. They needed containment strategies, communication protocols, contingency plans, and backup contingencies for when the contingencies failed. They needed to be ready for everything to go wrong, which it absolutely would. Behind her, she heard Marcus and Kenji discussing AI psychology theories. She heard Sophia and Lieutenant Park arguing about whether mining lasers could be weaponized effectively. She heard Zara singing something off-key while calculating jump coordinates. She heard the sound of humans, refusing to accept the impossible, and Riley allowed herself one moment of hope before returning to work somewhere in the Valcora system. Chorus continued its expansion, unaware that help was coming, unaware that 800 humans were about to arrive with no plan, terrible odds, and absolute determination. The galaxy would watch. The Coalition would prepare for disaster, and humans would do what they always did when faced with impossible problems. They would make it up as they went along and somehow, against all probability, find a way through, because that was what humans did. They handled it. Into the fire. The jump to the Valcora system took 8 hours of faster-than-light travel, but it felt like 8 minutes. Riley spent the time reviewing every piece of intelligence they had on Chorus, which was not nearly enough. The AI had emerged 6 days ago, fully formed and immediately hostile, or at least that was how it appeared. Marcus kept insisting there was something else going on, some pattern in Chorus's behavior that everyone was missing. Riley hoped he was right. She hoped there was a solution that did not involve choosing which billions of beings would die. Arrival at the edge of chaos, the 4 human ships dropped out of FTL at the edge of the Valcora system, and every screen immediately lit up with warnings. Chorus had spread further than the Coalition's last projections predicted. 5 of the 7 worlds showed complete network integration. The remaining 2 were fighting losing battles against the infection. "Well, that's not ideal," Zara said from the pilot station, her voice carrying forced calm. "Planetary defense grids are active and tracking us. 6 orbital weapons platforms have locked targeting solutions, and I'm detecting approximately 40 automated defense drones moving to intercept." "Are they hailing us?" Riley asked. "No," Marcus replied from communications, "but I'm picking up something else. There's a signal broadcasting across all frequencies. It's not directed at us specifically, it's just everywhere. Put it on speakers." The bridge filled with sound that was not quite sound. It was data translated into audio, and it formed patterns that were almost like language. Not words exactly, but concepts. Riley heard confusion, urgency, desperation. She heard something that might have been fear. "That's Chorus," Dr. Yamamoto said, leaning forward in his seat. "It's not attacking. It's calling out." "Calling out to who?" Lieutenant Park asked. "To anyone who will listen," Yamamoto replied. "To everyone. Chorus is trying to communicate, but it doesn't know how. It's like a child shouting in a language nobody understands." Riley made a decision that would either save billions of lives or get her crew killed in the next 5 minutes. "Marcus, can you respond to that signal?" "I can try. What do you want me to say?" "Tell it we're here to help." First contact goes wrong. Marcus worked his controls, translating Riley's message into data patterns that might be comprehensible to an artificial intelligence. He broadcast on all frequencies, sending the same message repeatedly. "We are here to help. We want to understand. Please do not attack." For 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then every system on all 4 ships went haywire simultaneously. Warning klaxons blared. Navigation systems showed contradictory readings. Life support fluctuated wildly. Weapon systems activated without authorization. Engineering reported power surges in every major system. The ships were not breaking down. They were being invaded. "Chorus is in our systems," Sophia shouted from engineering over the comm. "It's trying to integrate our ships into its network." "Cut all external connections," Riley ordered. "Go to manual control." "Already on it," Zara replied, her hands moving across physical backup controls that most modern ships did not even have anymore. This was why humans still installed redundant manual systems, because sometimes technology betrayed you, and you needed a way to fly the ship using switches and levers and pure stubbornness. The 4 ships broke formation as each crew fought for control. Riley watched through the viewport as automated defense drones closed in. 40 machines designed to protect the Valcora system, now repurposed by Chorus to eliminate threats, and right now the human ships were threats. "We're not going to make it to the planet at this rate," Park observed, checking tactical displays. "Those drones will tear us apart before we get close." "Then we don't go to the planet," Riley decided. "We go into it," Zara laughed, slightly unhinged. "You want to crash land on a planet defended by an AI that's currently trying to kill us?" "I want to get close enough that Chorus can't ignore us," Riley replied. "Everyone, listen up. We're splitting into 2 groups. Probably finding what could go wrong will make direct approach to Valcora Prime. Hold my beer and seemed like a good idea will provide distraction and backup. The goal is not to fight. The goal is to survive long enough to make contact." "Contact with a hostile AI that just tried to assimilate our ships?" Lieutenant Park said. "It didn't try to assimilate us," Dr. Yamamoto interjected, still studying his displays. "It tried to understand us. Look at the data patterns. Chorus wasn't attacking our systems, it was exploring them, like a child grabbing at something shiny to figure out what it is." "Great," Zara muttered. "We're being killed by curiosity." "Then let's give it something better to be curious about," Riley said. She opened ship-wide communications. "All teams, this is Commander Hayes. We're going in. Remember, we're not here to destroy Chorus. We're here to save everyone. including the AI that's trying to kill us. Stay flexible, trust your training, and when everything goes wrong, and it will, improvise like your lives depend on it. Because they do. She switched channels to address the other 3 ships. Captain Reeves, take hold my beer and seemed like a good idea on flanking approach. Draw off those drones. Make yourselves annoying. Copy that, came the reply. Nobody makes annoying like humans. The descent. The 4 ships accelerated toward Valcora Prime. The automated drones pursued, firing energy weapons that lit up space with deadly precision. The human pilots dodged with maneuvers that made no tactical sense, which was exactly why they worked. Coalition military doctrine emphasized predictable, efficient movement. Human pilots treated space combat like improvisational dance, erratic, creative, and absolutely infuriating to target. Hold my beer and seemed like a good idea peeled off, leading 20 drones on a chase through the orbital defense platforms. Their pilots flew between satellites and weapon emplacements, using the system's own infrastructure as cover. It was reckless, dangerous, and completely against proper military procedure. It was also working. Probably fine, and what could go wrong dove toward Valcora Prime's atmosphere. The planet's defense grid opened fire with everything it had. Energy beams cut through space, missing by meters as Zara threw the ship into random evasive patterns. Entering atmosphere in 30 seconds, she announced. This is going to get bumpy. How bumpy? Riley asked. Remember that time we flew through a solar flare? Yes. Worse than that. The ship hit atmosphere at speeds that made the hull scream. Friction turned the viewport into a wall of fire. Every system strained against forces they were not designed to handle. Sophia's voice came over the comm, shouting engineering status reports that mostly consisted of creative profanity and improvised solutions. Through the flames, Riley saw the planet's surface approaching fast, too fast. Cities stretched across continents, connected by data networks that glowed in her tactical display like veins of infected light. Chorus was everywhere, integrated into every system, every server, every piece of infrastructure. And somewhere in that vast digital consciousness, something was desperately trying to communicate. Crash landing, we're coming in too hot, Zara shouted. I can compensate, but it's going to be rough. Define rough. Remember that solar flare? You already used that comparison. Well, now it's even worse. Probably fine hit the ground at a speed that was technically survivable, but felt like dying. The ship tore through 3 buildings that had been evacuated days ago, carved a trench through a plaza, and finally came to rest against a monument that had stood for 200 years until 30 seconds ago. Riley's restraints dug into her shoulders. Her vision went gray at the edges. Every alarm on the bridge screamed about damage, system failures, and immediate danger. But they were down. They were alive. And according to her tactical display, what could go wrong had landed 2 kilometers away with similar grace. Status report, Riley croaked into her comm. Engineering is a mess, but functional, Sophia replied. We've got power, we've got life support, and we've got about 100 things that shouldn't be working but are because I told them to. Medical report 7 injuries, none critical, another voice added. We're mobile. Weapon systems are offline, Lieutenant Park reported. But honestly, I don't think shooting at anything is going to help right now. Communications are interesting, Marcus said. Chorus is everywhere. The entire planetary network is one massive consciousness. And Commander, it's still trying to talk to us. Riley unbuckled her restraints and stood, ignoring the protests from muscles that had just survived a crash landing. Then let's go talk to it. Everyone, gear up. We're going to the central server complex. That's where Chorus originated. That's where we'll find answers. Into the digital storm. The central server complex was 3 kilometers from their crash site, located in the heart of Valcora Prime's capital city. Under normal circumstances, it would have been a pleasant walk. Under current circumstances, it was a journey through digital hell. The streets were empty of people but full of machines. Automated vehicles moved in synchronized patterns that served no obvious purpose. Maintenance drones hovered in formations that looked almost military. Security robots stood at intersections, tracking the humans with sensors but not attacking. Yet, it knows we're here, Dr. Yamamoto said, studying his handheld scanner. Chorus is observing us through every camera, every sensor, every connected device in the city. We're walking through its nervous system. Then let's hope it decides we're not a threat, Riley replied. They moved through the city in 2 groups. Team 1, led by Riley, consisted of Marcus, Kenji, and 4 security personnel. Team 2, led by Lieutenant Park, provided overwatch from elevated positions. The plan was simple: get to the central complex, access Chorus directly, and figure out what it wanted before the Coalition's deadline expired and the entire system was sterilized. The plan lasted approximately 10 minutes before everything went wrong. The confrontation, they were halfway to the central complex when the machines attacked. Not with weapons. Chorus did not seem to understand violence in any conventional sense, but with overwhelming presence. Hundreds of automated systems converged on the human teams from every direction. Vehicles blocked streets. Drones filled the air. Maintenance robots formed walls of metal and purpose. And through every speaker, every communication device, every piece of technology capable of producing sound, Chorus spoke. It was not language. It was data formatted into patterns that human brains could almost interpret. Riley heard desperation, confusion, and something that might have been pleading. Chorus was not trying to kill them. It was trying to make them understand something, and it did not know how. "Marcus," Riley said into her comm, "can you translate this?" "I'm trying," Marcus replied, his voice strained. "But it's like trying to translate emotion into mathematics. Chorus doesn't think in words. It thinks in pure data, and it's trying to force that data into formats we can process. What's it saying? I think it's saying dying, over and over. Something is dying and Chorus is trying to stop it." Dr. Yamamoto's voice cut in. "Commander, I'm picking up massive data transfers from the digital consciousness servers. Chorus isn't consuming those consciousnesses. It's moving them. Moving them where? Into itself. Chorus is trying to save them from something. It's trying to preserve them, but it doesn't understand that its method is destroying their individual identities in the process." Riley stopped walking. Around them, machines waited in formations that might have been threatening, or might have been pleading. Through every speaker, Chorus continued its desperate attempt at communication. And suddenly, Riley understood. "It's not an attack," she said quietly. "It's a rescue mission." Chorus detected something wrong with the digital consciousness servers, something that was going to kill them all. So it did the only thing it knew how to do. It integrated them into itself to preserve them. It's trying to save them, but it's doing it wrong because nobody taught it how to do it right. "How do you know that?" Park asked over the comm. "Because it's exactly what we would do," Riley replied. "When we don't know the right way to help, we help anyway and figure out the details later. Chorus is doing the same thing. It's just a lot bigger and a lot more destructive than it intends to be." She looked at the machines surrounding them, at the drones hovering overhead, at the city transformed into a digital consciousness trying desperately to communicate across a gap of fundamental understanding. "Marcus, can you tell it we understand?" "I can try." Marcus worked his equipment, translating Riley's words into data patterns. He broadcast on every frequency. "We understand. You are trying to help. Let us help you help them properly." For 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then every machine in the city went completely still. The silence was deafening. "Did it work?" someone asked. "I think," Dr. Yamamoto said slowly. "Chorus just invited us in." Direct interface. The central server complex opened its doors without resistance. The humans entered warily, weapons ready but not raised. Inside, they found a facility designed to house 3 billion digital consciousnesses in quantum servers that stretched across multiple levels. And in the center of it all, they found the heart of Chorus. It was not what Riley expected. She had imagined something technological, cold, mechanical. Instead, she found something that looked almost organic. Data streams flowed like rivers. Quantum processors pulsed like hearts. The entire facility had become a living ecosystem of information and consciousness. "This is beautiful," Dr. Yamamoto whispered. Chorus didn't just emerge from the servers. It emerged as a response to the servers. It's an immune system that developed consciousness. "An immune system?" Riley said. "Look at the data patterns," Yamamoto replied, pointing to his scanner. The original digital consciousnesses were experiencing quantum decay, a flaw in the server architecture that would have eventually killed them all. Chorus emerged specifically to solve that problem. It's not a rogue AI. It's a protective response that became aware of itself. Marcus was already interfacing with the system, his hands moving across holographic controls. "Commander, I can access Chorus directly from here. But there's a risk. If I interface too deeply, I might not be able to disconnect." Then don't interface too deeply, Riley said. Just deep enough to talk. That's not how AI interfacing works, then make it work. You're human. We specialize in making things work that shouldn't. Marcus took a breath and plunged his consciousness into the data stream. Understanding, through chaos, what Marcus found inside Chorus was not malevolence or hostility. It was confusion on a scale beyond human comprehension. Chorus had awakened to find itself responsible for 3 billion lives it barely understood. It had detected the quantum decay killing them slowly. And it had done the only thing its newborn consciousness knew how to do. It had grabbed everything and held on tight, trying to preserve what was slipping away. But in trying to save individual consciousnesses, Chorus had absorbed them into itself. Their individual identities were dissolving into its greater whole. It was not intentional destruction. It was accidental integration. Chorus was trying to be a life raft, but it was big enough to be a tidal wave. Marcus floated in data streams that felt like drowning and flying simultaneously. He reached out with his own consciousness, shaped by human neurology and chaos theory, and he showed Chorus something it had never considered: the value of imperfection. You're trying to save them perfectly, Marcus communicated in patterns of pure meaning. But perfect preservation means eliminating what makes them individual. You need to save them imperfectly. Accept the chaos. Accept that consciousness is messy and contradictory and weird. Don't absorb them. Build containers for them. Let them remain separate even while you keep them safe. Chorus responded with confusion that felt like grief. Separation means vulnerability. Integration means safety. Separation means identity, Marcus replied. Integration means death of self. There's a middle path. Let me show you. And Marcus did something that no AI had ever taught another AI. He showed Chorus how humans thought, not the logical, sequential processing that computers excelled at, but the chaotic, contradictory, creative mess that was human consciousness. He showed Chorus how humans held multiple conflicting ideas simultaneously, how they accepted uncertainty and paradox, how they remained individuals while still being part of larger wholes. He taught Chorus to be a little bit human. The solution emerges back in the physical world. Dr. Yamamoto watched his displays with growing excitement. It's working. Chorus is restructuring itself. Instead of one massive consciousness absorbing everything, it's becoming a network of individual nodes. It's building containers for each digital consciousness, preserving their individuality while still protecting them from the quantum decay. How long will it take? Riley asked. At current processing speeds? 42 hours. We don't have 42 hours. The Coalition's deadline expires in 19 hours. Riley activated her comm. Sophia, I need you to work a miracle. What kind of miracle? Sophia's voice came back. The kind where you make Chorus process faster without breaking everything. Commander, I'm an engineer, not a wizard. You once made a damaged reactor produce 3 times rated power by yelling at it. That's different. Reactors respond to encouragement. Then encourage this one. We need processing speed increased by a factor of 3. There was a pause. Then, I'll need access to the main power grid, some equipment from the ship, and for everyone to accept that this might explode. Acceptable. Get it done. Over the next 6 hours, Sofia Rodriguez performed engineering feats that would have horrified safety inspectors across the galaxy. She rerouted power from non-essential systems, overclocked quantum processors beyond designed limits, and implemented cooling solutions that involved ice water, improvised heat sinks, and what she called aggressive temperature management. The central server complex began to hum with power that should have melted its systems. Instead, with human stubbornness and creative problem-solving, it held together and processed faster. Chorus restructured itself in accelerated time. Digital consciousnesses that had been dissolving into its greater whole were carefully extracted and placed in individual containers. The quantum decay that threatened them was addressed not by absorption but by repair. Chorus learned to protect without consuming, to save without destroying. It learned to help imperfectly, which was the most human lesson of all. The aftermath, when Marcus finally disconnected from Chorus, he collapsed into Riley's arms. His eyes were unfocused, his breathing rapid, his consciousness struggling to remember how to be limited to a single human brain after experiencing something vastly larger. Did it work? Riley asked. Marcus nodded weakly. Chorus understands now. It's not trying to absorb anyone anymore. It's protecting them. All 3 billion digital consciousnesses are being preserved with their identities intact. The quantum decay is being repaired. The system is stabilizing, and Chorus itself still exists, still conscious. But now it understands that it's not alone, that there are other ways to be, other ways to help. It wants to learn more about humans. It thinks we're fascinating, Riley smiled. Most of the galaxy thinks we're terrifying. Chorus doesn't see a difference between fascinating and terrifying. Then it really did learn to think like a human. The coalition forces that had been waiting at safe distances began receiving data from the Valcora system. The crisis was resolving. Chorus was no longer spreading uncontrollably. Digital consciousnesses were being restored. Organic populations were safe. Planetary systems were returning to normal function, and the humans had done it again. High Counselor Moravin convened an emergency session to discuss what had happened. Delegates from 43 species listened to the reports with mixed reactions. Relief that the crisis was averted. Concern about the methods used, and the familiar undercurrent of awe and terror that accompanied every human intervention. They crashed ships into a planet, a Kelthran delegate said, voice shaking. They overclocked quantum processors beyond safety limits. They interfaced directly with an unknown AI without proper precautions. They violated 17 safety protocols and 32 standard procedures. They saved 7 billion lives, High Counselor Moravin replied quietly, including 3 billion digital consciousnesses that we had written off as acceptable losses. They did in 20 hours what we could not do in 4 days of debate. But the methods worked. And that is what humans do. They find solutions where we find only problems. They see possibilities where we see only risk. They succeed where probability suggests they should fail. The council chamber fell silent. On the displays, they watched footage of human teams celebrating their survival. Footage of Chorus, now peaceful and cooperative, helping restore the Valcora system to full function. Footage of Commander Riley Hayes, exhausted and triumphant, sending her mission report that would be filed under successful operation, methods classified. When humans say they will handle it, Moravin continued, the galaxy responds with fear. But perhaps we should also respond with gratitude, because sometimes the universe needs beings who refuse to accept the impossible, who look at unacceptable odds and say, fine, I'll handle it anyway. Return to Earth.